In this session, we continue solving equations by factoring. Last time, we used the zero factor theorem, saying that if A times B is equal to 0, then A is equal to 0, or B is equal to 0. And we discussed how that property is essentially saying that the real numbers have no zero divisors. And we can utilize that property in solving equations. For example, x squared plus 7x plus 12 is equal to 0. So standard form would be the first step. The second step is to factor. And when we factor x squared plus 7x plus 12, we ask ourselves, what are the factors of 12 that add together to give you 7? And the answer would be 4 and 3. 4 times 3 is 12, and 4 plus 3 is 7. Therefore, the factoring is x plus 4 times x plus 3 equal to 0. And now the third step would be apply the property and set each factor to 0. That gives us x plus 4 is equal to 0, or x plus 3 is equal to 0. And now solving each of these equations, we isolate x. We get x is negative 4 for the first, or x is negative 3 for the second. And we have two solutions to that quadratic. Let's take a look at a slightly more complicated example. Suppose we have 2x plus 1 times x minus 3 is equal to 9. Well, if we think about our set of steps that we outlined, the first step, put in standard form. And to put an equation in standard form essentially means we want to try to simplify it. And to simplify, we want to try to collect like terms. And in order to collect like terms, sometimes we need to multiply things out. Therefore, we need to use the distribution property on the left-hand side, and applying the distribution property, we'll multiply the first terms together. 2x times x gives us 2x squared. The outside terms, 2x times negative 3 is negative 6x. The inside terms, 1 times x is x. And the last terms, negative 3 times 1 is negative 3. And on the right-hand side, we still have 9. Therefore, we collect like terms, and collecting like terms, on the left-hand side, we end up with 2x squared minus 5x minus 3 is equal to 9. The property that we want to apply says that if A times B is equal to 0, that tells us that we must have 0 on one side. That means that we want to move the 9 to the left-hand side, and we end up subtracting 9 from both sides. We end up with 2x squared minus 5x minus 12 is equal to 0, because negative 3 minus 9 gives us the negative 12 on the left-hand side. Right now, this equation is in standard form. The next step would be to factor. In order to factor that, 2 times negative 12 is negative 24. What are the factors of negative 24 that combine together to give you negative 5? Since they multiply together to give a negative 24, one number has to be positive, the other has to be negative, and they're combining together to give the middle term negative 5. So that means the number with greater magnitude has to be negative. Now, we want to rewrite the equation, replacing that middle term by those two numbers that we found. Negative 24 is negative 8 times positive 3. At the same time, negative 8 plus 3 gives us a negative 5. So we are replacing the middle term with negative 8x plus 3x minus the 12 there. And now from here, we want to pair them up. Pairing up the first two terms, we can take out a 2x, and an x minus 4 is left over. Pairing up the second two terms, we take out a positive 3, x minus 4 is left over. And now that binomial factor, x minus 4, is in common. That can come out, x minus 4. And what's left over would be the 2x plus 3 is equal to 0. And now that's what we wanted. We needed to have something factored equal to 0. Now we can apply the property and set each factor to 0. Setting the first factor to 0, x minus 4 is equal to 0. Or, setting the second factor to 0, 2x plus 3 is equal to 0. And now solving each of those, we end up with x is equal to 4, or 2x is equal to negative 3, and then dividing both sides by 2, we end up with x is negative 3 halves. And those would be the two solutions to that quadratic equation, 2x plus 1 times x minus 3 equal to 9.